more fucking around. It's Wild Style Radio. Wild Style Radio.
Stand up and shout.
What's up? Welcome to the Stand Up and Shout Rock Show. We're coming to you live from Salisbury Center Studios in Manassas, Virginia, on the Wild Style Network.
Yes, sir. Happy Thursday. How you doing today?
Happy Thursday.
Kevin? All right. So, are you hearing? You hearing the mics? I want to make sure because I'm not hearing. All right. I hear you. You're sitting right beside me.
Right.
But I'm making sure I got everything. And then we're here today because I'm just doing the mic check all around. Ethan is with us as our our production man this evening.
Yes.
Hello. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm feeling all right. It's my fault that we're late. You can blame me. Everybody can blame me. I got stuck up in my day job. I got stuck up in traffic. But who wants to hear that shit?
Yeah, you know. Moving on.
All right, moving on.
So, it's been kind of a bummer of a week.
It's been a melancholy week, right? Right. I mean, we're here to celebrate tonight, and that's what we're calling it. If you follow us in social media at the Stand Up and Shout Rock Show, you're seeing that we're celebrating one of our all-time favorites,
Ozzy Osbourne.
See, Ozzy's passing a few days ago, and really unexpectedly. We can start by saying that, right?
Right.
Because we did a really, I felt strong show on his Back to the Beginning festival, which was going to be his farewell performance, not only with him solo, but with Black Sabbath. And we were expecting him to maybe kind of stick around a little bit longer in some capacity, and we'd be seeing him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
In
so
different ways, not necessarily performing though.
right, yeah, and it, kind of a bit little, I guess, unexpected. One could say. I mean, obviously, everybody kind of knew his physical issues that he's been dealing with the last number of years, but for it to happen so abruptly,
Absolutely.
So yeah, and for someone who, I was telling my wife and daughter the other day, because, 45 years. I've been at least exposed to Black Sabbath and Ozzy.
Right.
So the majority of our adolescent and adult life had their music and everything that came with Black Sabbath and Ozzy.
Right. So ever since we've been listening to rock and roll, ever since we've been listening to metal, I have had the blessing of knowing you for many, many years.
Yep.
And even before I met you, I was listening to Ozzy Osbourne, in other words, and that's really kind of stunning.
Yeah. I mean, we've known each other well over 30 years.
Right.
And yeah. And so, I bought and I've talked about this on the show, the very first album I ever purchased in my hot little piggy bank, busted open, went down to Kmart, the music department, picked up my first album, and it was Blizzard of Oz. So yeah, it's been, I'm pushing 56. So
Right.
45 years.
Exactly. And it is and it's really that celebration. I like sticking to that word because I feel like we are blessed to have been exposed to a time not only because you can listen to recordings of Ozzy's music, but we were able to see him live. We were able to see different incarnations of Ozzy Osbourne being Ozzy Osbourne, and that playing out over the years. And we've done this podcast for a few years now, but it would have been cool to do it 20 years ago and talk about Ozzy Osbourne in that phase of his life and what he was going
For
through,
sure.
both musically and in live shows and everything that was, going down. Even obviously he's a character that's happening in other diverse media. I will say that, kind of getting back to meeting you and knowing you, of something that I'm seeing, and it's the beauty and the strength of rock and roll and heavy metal is the community that it builds. Because it's when we were just kind of dumb kids and I moved into the area and, first in our first conversation, I don't know what our first conversations were, but I can say that they were probably focused around sports and heavy metal.
Yep.
Like those two
For
things.
sure.
And that is the beauty of it that builds community. And I feel like I see that now in social media. And so when this was announced, you see, and social media can be so divisive. And we see that with people that we're friends with in our social media feeds. And especially when it comes to politics or just current events, people can be very angry. But those same people don't necessarily take that tone in an event like this.
Right.
And that's really like uplifting to see.
For sure. You know, the thing that has struck me, you know, flipping through the social media feeds and hopefully, you know, we've got some folks joining because this is not just our celebration.
Absolutely.
You know, so we've got the Celebrating Ozzy event and we've pushed out through our social media for the Stand Up and Shout Rock Show. And, you know, hopefully folks are joining in. I know we've got some friends that usually tune in. So, but we want to get, you know, join the chat, go to the page and open up the event and share some of your memories of Ozzy. And we've got a bunch of, we've got a slideshow where we're going to talk a little bit about our favorite experiences. So yeah, certainly chime in there and join this conversation with us tonight.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. Yep. And yeah, so that's what this show is tonight, folks. So like if you're tuning in expecting to see some news about something else or an interview, you're not going to see that tonight. This is all regarding that man, that great man, Ozzy Osbourne, and our different takes and experiences over the years with him and his music.
Yeah, and you know, so I was starting to say, you know, scrolling through social media the last couple of days, it's been interesting because friends that, you know, maybe mutual friends between us, but people that I have known over the years that were posting things about Ozzy's passing that I never would have expected them to really have any experience. They never really shared much of that in their social media postings or,
Absolutely.
you know, or that they were going to metal shows and such. But I think that also speaks to the breadth of what Ozzy's touched. You know, he wasn't just a singer and a musician. He became a.
I think so many people, even outside of the world of heavy metal, have even responded. This made the Today Show this morning.
Right.
Like the news of Ozzy Osbourne passing made the Today Show. We've seen a lot. Unfortunately, we've seen other people pass in recent years. And that was no news.
Yep.
We've seen something like very tragic, like Kevin DeBro passing, and that not even being acknowledged by most music organizations, let alone most news outlets. So it is really refreshing to see that this music figure that really changed the music world has also changed really the cultural world of the U.S. over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, for sure. We got some messages coming in. We'll share some of those as we get into some of the topics we're going to talk about. But our good friend John, normally producing the show for us, not here tonight.
Right.
He's gave us a message saying they say these big deaths happen in threes. Ozzy, obviously Hulk Hogan. So another, you know, I was very much in, probably, I won't say I still am as much as I was younger, but was a huge wrestling fan growing up. And the news that Hulk Hogan passed away today, that's hitting me real hard this week in terms of, you know, people that were a large part of my adolescence. So,
and John was asking if they're coming in threes, right? Like there's the pop culture reference that deaths come in threes. So Ozzy, Hulk Hogan, and I would go with Malcolm Jamal Warner, who is Theo Huxtable, you know, his unfortunate passing over the last few days.
Yeah, and I heard on WTOP on my way here, Chuck Mangione passed away today too.
I didn't know that. Man.
So yeah, now it's in fours.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, and Alexander Van Stone. We know Alex Van Stone. You know, he puts together a lot of great shows here at the Salisbury Center. He was mentioning his experience at Ozfest around 2005, the great Ozfest. We're absolutely going to talk about live Ozzy shows and some of our favorites. But of course, you know what? I was not at that Ozfest in 2005. I was not there that year. But, I mean, that's just been a renowned festival for a long run and had a great run. So thanks for dropping that, Alex. Good to hear from you.
All right.
So first, kind of like we're framing some kind of topic conversations, and I know that, like you're saying, things that we seen or things that we were seeing on social media as people were reacting to Ozzy's passing. One of the first things that I noticed is that people like to throw up when you first heard of Ozzy. Like, when did you first come in to knowing Ozzy and seeing Ozzy? And let's see. I guess, okay, so I was looking for my slide for that. I don't have a visual for that, so I'm not going to flip my visuals around.
Right.
But of course, I have a story for that. You kind of shared yours. Would you like to kind of expand on that a little bit more in terms of buying the Blizzard of Oz as your first album purchased?
Yeah, well, and I had a couple older stepbrothers, and one of them was living in the house with us. So when I was 8, 9, 10 was when the Blizzard of Oz album came out in 1980. But, he was all into rock. We listened to a lot of stuff. He had a lot of albums. So I was listening to Sabbath, 78, 79-ish. So got my first exposure to Ozzy through Black Sabbath during that time frame prior to them firing him from the band. And so that would have been when I first heard Ozzy.
It's amazing how like media changes your first exposure to many things. Not even just Ozzy Osbourne, but a lot of things and a lot of music now, because we take that for granted, especially people that grew up with a device in their hand, especially a touch device in their hand,
Right.
that had exposure to all music at all times. So if you just hear a mention of Ozzy, you see mentions of Ozzy in social media, or you see it on a television show or a movie, you just look it all up, and that was that. And that was not the way you and I were first exposed. The first exposure that I had to Ozzy was through an album cover, right? Like that was the first, and that was really the value of album covers and LPs. That was a lot of people's first exposure.
For sure.
You would pick up an album and look at it and think, should I listen to this or not? And that wasn't necessarily all telling, because a picture could be deceiving in terms of what the album was going to offer. And I think that that's very true of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath albums.
Sure.
Pictures can tell a lot of the story, but they don't tell the whole story of the depth of what you're about to listen to. So for me, I remember specifically it was in the Atari years, like playing Atari with a buddy of mine. And he had a lot of tapes that I just didn't have because I was, just didn't have as much. I guess I didn't earn as much allowance or do much around to like kind of, it was before I could work, kind of deal. And excuse me, that's where I saw that same album, Kevin, that you did, that Blizzard of Oz album cover of Ozzy holding up the cross, and it looked like he's about to pulverize it into the ground. And like, as that exposure, like, what's that about to be? And it's also, should I be listening to that? You know what I mean? And it definitely communicates danger, that there's going to be something that you're not going to expect that's happening
Right.
when you go to put this on. So you become thrilled and a little bit afraid to like pop that tape in the tape deck or put that album on the turntable and let it rip.
Right.
Of course you do, because it's a part of that scared experience.
That's right.
And then you hear the opening chords of I Don't Know, and Randy Rhoads lighting it up. And that was just life-changing. Like it's that same experience. Like, I'm absolutely going to listen to this guy.
Yep.
Like, why wouldn't I?
And how are you going to get this record in the house past mom and
Then
dad?
there's that's the next gear. So we were talking about like the first exposure, right? So like that
Yep.
absolutely happened to me. Then it was found out that I was listening to Ozzy, and I was never shut down for listening to Ozzy. I know other kids that were.
Sure.
And then you would hide the Ozzy albums. I kind of did that anyway because, I was getting those lectures that, I could be going to hell for playing Crazy Train. Right? And that's the complexity of Ozzy, because Crazy Train is a very loving song about overcoming hardship and adversity.
Right.
And the world is a crazy place. And how can we come together to make it a better place? And that's what's missed, like in those assumptions, just because you saw maybe the gimmick that made you drop the needle in the first place.
Well, and that's one of the songs that's being played on the radio, whereas another tune off that album, Suicide Solution,
Right.
gets spun in that same vein,
Right.
completely misunderstanding the lyrical content.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So.
So we got with the new producer, I gotta like ask, because Ethan, you're a young pup.
Okay.
Like you might be one of those ones that like we're talking about. Do you listen to Ozzy? Have you heard anything with Ozzy?
Of course, he's the Prince of Darkness. Got to hear something.
Yeah. All right. So so where did you first hear Ozzy?
Probably in a gymnasium.
Oh yeah. So like the sports environment,
Yes, Crazy Train is the song for like high school sports, middle school sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like on repeat.
So right. I mean, it's an iconic riff. It's a strong riff. It's going to pick you up when you hear it. So of course, and right, all stadiums pick it up. It's a easily recognizable song. That's what we get into a lot of conversation too. Like, why didn't Ozzy Osbourne play the halftime show at the Super Bowl?
Shoulda.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. And then, like, this is what happens when you don't take advantage of somebody in the prime of their career. You lose it. You lose that opportunity, and it really sucks.
Well, even, so what was it? Was it when we went to, was it the Greta Van Fleet show? Was that the night? We went to a show that was the day that the NFL did their kickoff.
Yes, that was Greta Van Fleet.
And,
yes.
Or no, because I think, well, whatever it was, but at that kickoff before the game, Ozzy performed, and they didn't even show it.
Right.
So it's like, here's the NFL's premier kickoff event.
Right.
You have this legendary musician playing that you paid to come perform,
Right.
and you didn't even broadcast it.
And then meanwhile, you're going to play the sound bites of Crazy Train throughout the game.
Right.
Not only that game, but all the other games that are happening in multiple stadiums around that day.
Little odd.
Yeah.
And then we got some comments coming in. So Alex, again, his introduction in elementary school, the older kids that he skateboarded with introduced me to Sabbath with the pitch, they play chords that are banned by churches. So early Black Sabbath.
Danger. They're going back to that danger again.
Early Black Sabbath was in frequent rotation at the quarter pipe on the boombox.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Chris Wilson, his first, I'm assuming if he's responding to that question, but he says his first exposure
Was on a turntable.
he said Sabbath.
Okay, Sabbath album, excuse me, and like throwing that on and like having a drink in remembrance. And I think that we're going to talk both ways today. We're going to talk about albums. We're going to talk about songs because people consume, music in very different ways. Some still listen to full albums. I know that we do. Some only want some songs for a playlist. So we're going to make recommendations towards both. But one Ozzy album, specifically an Ozzy album, but not a Black Sabbath album, but an Ozzy album that you would listen to today and like in the context of today and remembering Ozzy that you would listen to.
Me to go first?
Kill it. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's where I started. It's Blizzard of Oz.
I had a feeling you were going to go there.
Yeah.
By the way, we never talk about what we go to talk about, so
No.
like, this is all news to us.
And
Both of us. I mean, more to me. Not. I guess it's not news to you.
But yeah, I mean, and I think I know your answer, and we've had this debate before. But for me, it was the entry drug to Ozzy.
Yeah, sure.
And from beginning to end, it's just one killer song after another.
Absolutely.
There is no filler. There's no dead space on pretty much most of his first 3 or 4 albums, but it's Blizzard of Oz for me, and I always go back to that.
So I hear you, and like I would agree with everything you said, including that there's no bad songs on that album. So I think it would be a great album to kick back to. So I'm 1,000% in agreement. So this is not like sometimes Kevin's wrong, but not like that time around. So like I'll say that because I'm going to choose a different album.
Yes.
You knew it because we have talked about this. Because I feel like, and mine is Diary of a Madman. So the album that's his follow-up album to Blizzard of Oz, which I feel the same way that you do about Blizzard of Oz to that one, that every song on that album is just as strong. There's a few favorites of mine that are just super strong favorites that I'm going to give as Ozzy songs then also. But then I'm not going to say like, I'm going to give them my favorites of favorites in a little bit as we talk about that category. But I have to go with Diary of a Madman, just the title track off that song, which closes the album as an epic Ozzy tune and an operatic and grand Ozzy tune. And I think that that's kind of cool to end the Ozzy album on. And if you're kicking back and remembering him in a grand way, that's going to, give you that mood and that feeling. But we could go back and forth as to what is the best of those two albums. And I think that you and I are both in agreement. It's either one of those two albums.
For sure.
There's other great Ozzy albums, but in terms of number one, if we would rate and rank those albums and do it in that bottoms-up format, these would be 1 and 2 for us.
For me, it's 1A and 1B.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So no doubt. So you can't go wrong with either of those. I thought about picking Blizzard of Oz. I had a feeling you were going to pick Blizzard of Oz. I didn't do that just to be different. I thought about like going in lockstep with you, but there's just multiple songs on Diary of a Madman that I can't get away from. Okay, so along those lines, we'll shift gears and then we'll go to the Sabbath album to listen to, like in the same context. So, do you know what Jake picked?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, we didn't. Jake
Probably never say die.
All right, yeah, all right. That's kind of interesting. Why did you go?
That one gets panned quite a bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I
You had to fire the shot. All right, so you kicked off last time. I want to kick off
All
this
right.
time. I went classic on this one, so I went pretty straightforward and very predictable. And this, I think Rolling Stone magazine may have rated this as the best heavy metal album of all time. It's certainly in the top 5 in those rankings, so I don't think I'm coming with any surprises with Paranoid. There's just so many great songs on Paranoid. And by the way, like in terms of listening to albums, all these albums that we're talking about, including Diary of a Madman, Blizzard of Oz, we're usually talking about 8 to 10 tracks. And I know that this has 8 tracks on it, 4 in the front, 4 in the back.
Yep.
And this is when you really had like a shorter album, almost like considered an EP anymore.
Sure.
You know, with the length of albums that are being made, which is great. It's great to have a lot of music and more tunes. But you could really get into some intense music, you know, in a very short period of time by sitting down and listening to Paranoid. Of course, War Pigs is on this album, and Paranoid, obviously the title track of this album, and just to mention. And I know that you probably did not pick this. I had a feeling you were going to go off the beaten track.
well, you might be surprised.
Oh, I am going to be surprised then. All right. So I'm going to kick it to you.
Yeah. So, you know, if I were recommending it, if somebody came to me and said, hey, you know, I've heard a lot about Ozzy, Black Sabbath. Would you recommend an album that I could go listen to, you know, to get a sense of Sabbath?
Right.
You could, for me, not for me, but one that you could recommend would be Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but that's cheating because that's a greatest hits album. So you're going to get a little bit of everything.
That's a good point.
But
we did go with full studio albums. We
correct.
didn't go with compilations.
Right.
Right.
And so you did mention that you know, there were 8 songs on Paranoid, and you know, I think a lot of people may go back to the first album, Black Sabbath, which was only 5 songs, but as long as some of their other albums.
That's it.
But yeah, for me, it's Paranoid. That's my choice.
Paranoid also.
Yeah, for a lot of the same reasons, because there's so many great songs of theirs,
right,
including some of my more favorite songs of theirs that are considered deep track. If you can call anything Sabbath has put out a deep track at this point. But a lot of that stuff is on there. You know, you've got Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Electric Funeral.
Love that. So I was listening on the way down.
Hand of Doom.
Yeah.
You know, and Fairies Wear Boots.
So right. Right.
I mean, just that is on par with Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman.
And Rat Salad as an instrumental, on that album. I have heard covers of people doing Rat Salad just because it's such a strong instrumental tune, and that Sabbath put out on that album. So, I look at that. We're in lockstep on that one. I thought you were going to go off the beaten path.
Yeah, I mean, there's great songs on most of their first 4 or 5 albums, but not to the same level, in my opinion, as on Paranoid. And that's probably why Rolling Stone rated it the #1 metal album.
Right, right. And so I think they went as far as to call that the true birth of metal as opposed to Black Sabbath. I don't know, you know, but I mean, it seems like the album that came out before this, you know, with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, really kind of set that tone. But either way, I don't know, Ethan. Like I said, I'm picking on you because of your age. Well, I think I asked you this before, like last time you were around. Are you an album listener?
I do love albums, full length, front to back.
Okay.
I like it better than playlist. I think you get the full experience with the
well, that's what we talk about that too. That sets like you feel the mood of the artist with that collection of songs that they put together in the album instead of it kind of like bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite Ozzy or Sabbath album?
No, I would probably have to say Paranoid too. I mean, it's just excellent. Front to back, it's one of those that's just great song.
Sure. We went with more popular picks, and some people don't like that. Some people are kind of like, I expect you guys to like go into some deep track that I never heard of. But sometimes those deep tracks, I mean, they're great, but they may not measure up to what's already put out there.
Sure.
Right? I'm not saying that necessarily. There's a lot of great tracks in Black Sabbath tunes that we can talk about. But in terms of the album collection, we're all in agreement on Paranoid. All right.
Next one
to think of Ozzy. Okay. Talked about albums. Now we're going to get to the songs. So 3 Ozzy tunes that you could add to a playlist. So if you're a playlist person, you wanted to pop those in, talk about those songs. And let me go with qualifiers, Kevin, before we get into our tracks. The 3 tracks to add to your playlist. Did you have any type of filters that you were using to come up with these Ozzy tunes? You mentioned no compilation albums and only studio albums. We made our album selections. Did you have something that guided your choices?
So for me, when it came to the three song choices,
this could change very easily. This could change very easily in a month, right? Because you're going to remember Ozzy differently in a month, especially if additional media comes out or something that is nostalgic and drives you in really kind of a warm and fun way to remember another album or another song in a different way. So I framed my choices, my 3 selections, not necessarily by Ozzy, but by the guitarists. So I chose, there have been many Ozzy guitarists, but the 3 majors. So I went with Randy Rhoads, Jake E. Lee, and Zakk Wylde, and then a song from each of those artists because it did really kind of shape and frame Ozzy tunes in those periods.
And that was the other criteria that I used.
Okay.
To give the essence of the 3 main guys that he worked with.
And you were thinking the same way.
Yep.
Love it. All right. Well, I'm going to go first.
Okay.
All right. One of my favorite, and I'm coming back to Diary of a Madman. I love the sleaziness of this tune. I love Randy Rhoads' guitar tone in this tune. Not that Randy Rhoads doesn't have amazing guitar tone, say in a song like Crazy Train, which we were talking about everybody's hearing in a sports stadium, but Flying High Again. And this is also Ozzy projects to me a lot of themes and moods in his songs in very different ways. And this is Party Ozzy at his best and Party Ozzy at his peak. And so sometimes that can be self-destructive, right? It doesn't feel that in this song. This is where you're having the time of your life and you are flying high again with Ozzy Osbourne. And it's deviant and it's hedonistic and it's rebellious. And in terms of the danger that we talked about earlier with Blizzard of Oz, you're partying in your ways that would horrify your mother. But damn, you're having a great time doing it, And so you are flying high on that one. And I know that we're celebrating Ozzy and it's melancholy, but he's a feel-good guy. So this is a real great way to kind of pick yourself up and remember the party of Ozzy Osbourne.
Right. Well, and the music has to live on, right? That's for those of us that are still here, that's where the memories are going to come from, and we're always going to go back to the tunes. So, and I didn't do a slide for each one. I got them all 3 listed on one slide.
Oh, okay. So we're going to reveal at the end for you.
Sure.
I love it.
But, so do you want to do your second and third?
All right, yeah, I'll go. Okay. Then I'll do my. We'll go 3 in a row, 3 up, 3 down. All right. So then, second guitarist to Jake E. Lee, and yes, there's a video for this one. I just think it's also there's controversy over this song, which is "Bark at the Moon" by Ozzy Osbourne.
That's
how much of this is Ozzy Osbourne, right? That's the Jake E. Lee claim in this is that he would not necessarily financial reimbursement, but songwriting credit for this song,
which ultimately
could lead to financial to the financial reimbursement. But I mean, this is Ozzy. This is Ozzy again. It's not necessarily the party song that "Flying High Again" is, but it is Ozzy and his Jekyll and Hyde video, turning into the beast that he could become, and barking at the moon.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think. With the guitar players and the musicians that he recorded with, and I'm sure it had something to do with whatever the contracts were when they joined the band, but where everything became Ozzy's. Right. But I don't see that song being written 100% by Ozzy.
Right. I don't really. I'm sure that there are significant contributions from not only the guitarists, but all musicians that were involved in these kind of phases of Ozzy Osbourne.
Sure.
And I feel like you can hear it in the writing, and you can hear the differences in the songs
For
as you're
sure.
listening to 'em.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like, I don't think that Jakey Lee would be the only one. It would kind of probably open a floodgate to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
If they wanted that writing credit, but still, I mean, it's a song that fits Ozzy. I remember Jakey Lee even being interviewed, and where he was playing the riff to "Bark at the Moon," and I think it was a riff that he was writing for another song, and that's what he was talking about. And then remembering the tone of Randy Rhoads, it was a slower riff. The tempo was different on it. He's like, oh no, this is Ozzy. And then he pumped it out that way. And it did. It sounded like Ozzy.
Right.
So he captured his, his feel with that song.
Yeah, and the other, with all of the back to the beginning and the tribute and everything that occurred, one of the guys that kind of fell by the wayside and really got not glossed over, but just wasn't discussed is Randy Castillo.
Yeah, you're right.
Which was such a huge part of that time, that era of Ozzy.
That's a good
And
point.
unfortunately, he also left us way too early.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And then my final, getting to Zakk Wylde, going to No More Tears. And so, like with that's the title track of No More Tears.
Yep.
By the way, the cherub Ozzy on that album cover. So Ozzy looking very cherubic and innocent.
Yep.
Very unlike Bark at the Moon. But it's an epic song. I love,
Yep.
I like, and normally I'm not one for keyboards in the song, but I love how there's keys backing all of the great guitar work from Zakk Wylde. But Ozzy just brings attitude into this song. And it's just him being just badass Ozzy, and it is a stand-up and fight song. I think in a lot of ways this would fit a sports arena just as easy as Crazy Train. It's just not about the riff, but it's about we're standing up and getting it done. you know, and the mood that's in that song.
For a single release in a video, it's a long song too.
Epic Ozzy tune. So those are my three: Flying High Again, Bark at the Moon, and No More Tears.
All right. So again, I picked one from each guitarist era. My first choice, Suicide Solution.
All right, there you go.
So Randy's just blistering on that song, and we talked a little bit about it. You know, it's Ozzy. It's everyone. A lot of people perceived that he was talking about it in a
Literally talking about suicide. Suicide as a solution.
Right.
So like there was a very literal interpretation of that song, which was very far off of what the song was actually about.
Which he left out the one word that could have spun it, but that's not the way that he wanted the song to be.
Sure.
Which is not.
Right.
Suicide is not the solution.
Right.
Which is what the song was really about.
Right.
But and it led to a lot of controversy
And alcoholism.
And
problems with alcoholism and how it could lead to
Right.
depressive thoughts that could lead you to suicide.
Right. And so people chose, for whatever reason, not quite like the Judas Priest deal with backwards messages, but people who unfortunately, for whatever reason, with mental health issues, took their lives, and the parents or the church or other people were blaming Ozzy for that because of this song, because they listened to that album.
Right.
So that, he had to deal with that at a point in time in his career as well.
Right. Great guitar work on that too by Randy Rhoads also. Yeah.
Yeah. So then my Jakey Lee pick was Rock and Roll Rebel,
Okay, nice.
which is kind of a deep track. It's hidden down in that album.
You know what? As soon as you said that, I thought to myself, I was like, I haven't heard that song in a long time.
Yep.
And so like that's going to be my ride on the way home. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one that was the Zakk Wylde introduction off of No Rest for the Wicked, Bloodbath in Paradise.
I love that song.
Which starts out kind of eerie and, horror-esque, and then Zakk just takes off.
And it's, again, like Bloodbath in Paradise sounds like it could be a demonic, occultist, kind of piece.
Well, it kind of is
because it's a real life, right? Demonic occultist situation, but somebody that didn't put themselves out that way, which of course is about the Jim Jones suicides in Guyana. That was ultimately
and he's referencing Charlie and the family.
Yes, exactly.
So the Manson murders.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes. Wait a minute. I got my occultist.
Right.
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah. So three little not quite as well known tracks. So would be great on a playlist.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. So, just like albums, we talk songs. I'm sorry, just like albums, we talked Ozzy.
Song on Paranoid, so it kind of wraps things up.
Right. And an epic song. You're bringing that up too. It's over 6 minutes long.
Right.
Yeah.
So back in the radio days, it was a good song to throw on when you needed to run down the hall to the restroom or something. Which I might have done a few times at WUVT.
Were you wearing boots?
I was not wearing boots. Second one, Hole in the Sky.
Okay.
Off of Sabotage.
Excellent.
And I just love the opening to that, the tempo and the beat, and then Ozzy's vocals are just killer.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
Yep. And then the last one may not be much of a surprise, but War Pigs.
Oh, War Pigs is just a genius song.
Epic song.
All right. So wait. So I got to get into War Pigs a little bit, and I'm gonna make sure that I say it right. So I'm going on this little dealie that I have in front of me, and I'm looking it up. So because War Pigs, its original title, I found this like extremely interesting. So I'm looking at it, it's like, and that's I'm
And they opened with this at Back to the Beginning. So while you're looking, a couple more thoughts.
Okay, Walpurgis.
Walpurgis.
Walpurgis, right? Have you heard this?
No.
Like I just found this as I was like doing a little homework on all of this.
Oh.
Walpurgis is Christmas for Satanists, right? So it's like, I guess it's like, I don't know if it's a birth of Satan. I don't know if it's when he fell from heaven. I don't know, but like that is the day that I guess Satanists celebrate like in a massive holiday kind of way. But this again, like this gets to Ozzy, right? And Black Sabbath even. They weren't like, I guess, writing that song, and it was Geezer Butler, that came up with the lyrics and the title for Walpurgis. He wasn't necessarily doing that to celebrate the holiday of Satanism. He was equating war to being celebrated in the same way. Right? So like being a great anti-war song and protest song, it went with that, but I guess record executives are like, nobody's going to know what Walpurgis is, and that sounds really weird. So then it mutated into War Pigs. A little factoid I found out today.
That's very interesting.
I know, right? I know. All right, so sorry.
Yeah, all good. Now your picks.
All right, my pick. All right, so I'm not going to flip this around because I've changed my mind. I think like one of the hardest things to do is to pick songs. Because there's so many songs. Like, we've talked about this many times. People are like, tell me a song, or tell like your favorite song from Jane's Addiction. Like, I mean, that's mind-blowing to me, because I could change my mind like every 5 minutes. And then I wind up like doing this as I'm driving in even. And so I've had I really thought and was intentional about some of the other songs, but it was my third song that I just kept flipping on, because it wasn't because one was so much stronger than another. It was because they were all strong. So I went from Children of the Grave because I just absolutely love that song. And I was thinking about moods. So if you're reflecting and listening to Ozzy, like to kind of change up the moods a little bit, I did change it to, and Jake will like it, to Never Say Die. The actual song of Never Say Die, because I think it fits the time. Not that it's better than Children of the Grave,
right?
But Ozzy passed, and this is when Ozzy was, there was problems with him in Black Sabbath before that album was made. So he was punted from Black Sabbath, and then he came back, and they were looking for that joyous reunion. They were looking for rock and roll to live forever, and that's that spirit in that song. And so, like in the spirit of Ozzy's legacy, that's what swayed me to go back to Never Say Die. Because that's what we want. We want the legacy of Ozzy to live on and for it to never say die. It's up-tempo. It's not a ballad or a sad song in any way. I think like it's interesting you didn't pick any ballads in this, especially in Back to the Beginning. People keep talking about Changes and Mama, I'm Coming Home, and they're great songs.
Yep.
And they're certainly, like, they fit the mood of losing someone, but I also like the mood of having that person's spirit live on. So that's where I went with Never Say Die.
So it's interesting, just kind of a tangent there when you bring up Mama, I'm Coming Home. Mm-hmm. That was one of the other interesting things I saw people were posting on social media. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, this was Ozzy's last song ever.
Right.
I'm like, no, because there was a whole nother set with Black Sabbath after that. So
right.
Like, okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, so I also there's my Walpurgis. I'm right. I just think this is one of the best anti-war songs ever written, and like. I'm a bit of an anti-war kind of guy, and I think that Ozzy really kind of held on to that, and not only in Black Sabbath, but also in his solo career. With I remember a song "Thank God for the Bomb." Like we're talking about titles and Suicide Solution, like you brought that up. "Thank God for the Bomb" is not one of my three. It's a great song, but again, like you hear that title and you just have this assumption of who would name a song "Thank God for the Bomb,"
Right.
and think that you were going to blast out the world, and there's this like sick, demented kind of thought behind it. But if you've listened to that song, a lot of the lyrics suggest because of the bomb, we haven't had a major war since World War II. So if people aren't at war killing each other, and it's a deterrent, then it's a wonderful thing. Now that's again another controversial opinion, but ultimately it's still an anti-war opinion.
Right.
And I love his vocals in War Pigs also. And it's a cappella through the verses, and it's young Ozzy, and he sounds very young. He doesn't sound as seasoned as he is in his later solo albums or even later Black Sabbath albums. And I think it's another thing that draws people to this song because there's vulnerability in the sound of his voice. And that vulnerability draws you to the cause of, knowing that war is a bad idea. I also think that it's not lofty. It's not a lofty anti-war song, and some of them can get that way and pretentious. And he's speaking from the everyday man, and everyday man can relate to that and why they wouldn't want to go to war.
Right.
So I went with that. And then Kevin, you picked it. Like, it's funny. I absolutely agree with you that Fairies Wear Boots is my favorite Sabbath song too. And that's why I was asking, like, why is it yours? Because I really didn't know that until you brought it up. I love it's an epic party tune. Like, so Flying High Again is a very focused party tune, 3-4 minutes long, and it's a great ride, and it's a short burst. But Fairy Wear Boots, like somehow they turned that into a complex music arrangement with whacked out lyrics. So I guess I heard this rumor that it started when, I guess, a skinhead saw Ozzy like walking down the street as a long hair, because there's always this classic thing from the 80s, right? Like skinheads versus long hairs. And they called him a fairy, and he had boots on. And so like he kind of did this as a kind of a kick-ass, like F you back to the skinheads, like I'm a fairy, but I wear boots. But then I think he was probably feeling pretty good at the same time and on an acid trip, because he's certainly talking about his experiences on acid, as he's wandering through wherever he's wandering and wearing those boots at the same time. So yes, I mean, it's just, you also brought up covers. I can't remember, one of the best covers I've ever seen of Fairies Wear Boots was LA Guns at the Tally Ho, like in a little small venue. That wasn't the last show. You were at that. Were you at that show when they covered that tune?
I think so. Yeah.
I loved their version of it, and yeah, I think it was Phil Lewis was just like, we're about to play the best song ever written, and then they kicked into Fairy, and I was not expecting them to play Fairy Wear Boots.
Well, and I thought Alice in Chains, of all the covers that were done at the Back to the Beginning.
Yeah.
I thought that was hands down the best cover. I mean, Youngblood and doing changes, that was pretty cool. But Alice just knocked that out of the park.
Absolutely. Right. Fantastic. Like instrumentally and vocally, both. I'm absolutely with you. I loved that portion of the Back to the Beginning festival.
Yep.
We have a question just popped in, your craziest Ozzy moment. And the answer to that is yes. And that's one of our categories. So we're getting there. Moss Ionith, thanks for dropping that in on us. All right, Ethan, you're like the watch out there. I mean, I know you're running all the electronics. You look pretty busy out there. You're smiling and you look comfortable, so that's a good thing.
We're good.
Do you have an Ozzy song that you'd like to bring up that maybe we didn't? I hate to put you on the spot, so you can just tell me to piss off, because I just put you on the spot and I'll get it. I made you think.
He's on Google.
I know he is looking. I know. Look, songs are hard. Because, like, if you take Rolling Stone's Satisfaction, it's a very recognizable riff. But then it's like, is that heavy metal? And then, boom, that kicks off a whole nother huge debate as to what is and what isn't, which we've had a million times.
Sure.
What is and what is not heavy metal. So in other words, Ethan, I've been caught there too. And that was a drunken conversation.
Yeah.
At least by the people calling me, and I was sober as a judge, so it was really hard for me to kind of sort through. And it never resolved itself. And who knows where it is today? Like, he's probably pissed off that I never answered the question.
Sure.
All right. Well, we'll move on. You can think about your song if you don't have one.
I only had one, and it was No More Tears.
Okay, all right,
excellent.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like my kind of.
It's a great tune.
I like. Okay, this is really dorky of me. This is my analogy, and this really has less to do with Ozzy and more about Zakk Wylde because I love his playing on that song. I love the build up into a solo. It feels like a roller coaster, like the organs and the keys that lead into it, and you hear the guitars like kind of slinking in, and when it kicks in, it's like going over that hill. Man, he is in like a full whale and blasting through a beast solo, and I love that pop in that solo and his guitar work in that one.
The songwriting between the two of them definitely hit. That was, I think, the peak was that album.
Yeah.
That they really refined that, where No Rest for the Wicked was like, here's our new guy.
Right.
And he was
Right.
just all over every song.
Right.
And it's just classic Zakk, but the songwriting just evolved between he and Ozzy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so before we get to the craziest moment, Moss, we're getting to the standout live Ozzy performance that you attended. So that's like a key caveat in this one. I wish I would have seen him more. I'll come out and say that. There were opportunities when I was younger that I passed on. Like kicked myself in the ass for like not going, but I took advantage of opportunities certainly later, and I did see him like back in the day also. So I'm really interested to see where you're going to go with this.
Well, I'm really embarrassed when I saw this question because I never saw him live.
Really? You never saw Ozzy live? You were at Ozzy Metallica in '86? Yeah, really? Damn.
No, because that was actually
That was the Ultimate Sin tour.
No, that was before that.
Was that Bark at the Moon? Wait a minute, would that have been Bark at the Moon? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because that was still Jake Ely in the Ultimate Sin.
Yep.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't see them then, and obviously when Zakk joined the band, No Rest for the Wicked came out in '88. So we were at school, and for whatever reason, I don't think anything ever lined up. I think they came here when we were at school, and so we missed them. And then there was one, it was '99 or 2000.
Right.
I was planning to go to an Ozfest, and then I had to travel out of town, so I didn't even go to one of those.
Stunned by that.
So yeah, it's I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen him live, and now I won't.
Oh well, you said, and live was another key word in that one too.
Yeah,
you saw Back to the Beginning.
I did see that, and so as my fallback, the other one, and I think you were with us, but Damon got the pay-per-view for the Moscow Music.
Yes. Yep.
And so I saw that, and they were great at that. So
That's
I have seen
'89. That was 1989 Moscow Musical Festival. Right?
Yeah.
When you were first allowed, like a lot of artists were allowed to first go into Moscow and Russia,
right,
and play there for the first time.
And that was Doc McGee's community service for his little arrest,
exactly.
and which is funny to read about now because they're like, oh, there's no drinking, there's no alcohol, there's no drugs, and then you're like, whatever, and they're all just shit faced and out of their minds. But that was a great show. It was 8-9 bands, so it was just a great metal show. But and back to the beginning, knowing what it was what it was and. So that was cool too. So I've seen those, but nothing where I was
standing there.
Right.
So I actually, for me to answer this question, I veered away from Ozzy and I combined it with Black Sabbath. And I'm wearing the shirt. I wore the shirt for a reason. So I went with Black Sabbath in Bristow here at Jiffy Lube in August of 2013. And it was Bill Ward was not a part of this. That was really kind of the tragic part in this. And this was a reuniting of Ozzy with Black Sabbath. I saw Black Sabbath twice. I was lucky enough to see him with Ronnie James Dio when they were really not even calling themselves Black Sabbath.
Heaven and Hell.
Exactly, right. So they were going around as Heaven and Hell. Both great Sabbath shows, but I saw the power of Sabbath because really they played just a few tracks off of 13 and this one. And all of the songs that we listed as the 3 songs to listen to, they played that night, and I was able to hear, including Fairies Wear Boots, and that was bitchin'. I mean, just a bitchin' great song to watch live. But the one that stands out, the song we haven't talked about, which is also a part of Paranoid, is Iron Man. And that's what really stands out about me in that particular performance, because I don't even remember the old Maxwell commercial where the guy was sitting in a chair, he had his hands out, and then that was in front of a speaker, and it was like wind blowing your hair back because the audio was so intense and it was coming at your face, and that was like Maxell Tapes was supposed to deliver that powerful audio. That's what Iron Man was like. I felt like there was a wind coming off the amplification on that stage when you heard those opening riffs of Iron Man, which you hear in movies. The Iron Man movie, you certainly hear the Iron Man song. It was nothing like that live, and that was so awesome. And I could hear that riff like again and again live, and I'd probably lose my hearing and wouldn't hear for the rest of my life, by the next day. But damn, it sounded good that night, I'll say. So like, that's where I go. That was a very memorable experience. I had other, obviously, great Ozzy shows. The last I saw Ozzy was 2018. I don't know where you were on that one. His health was starting to fail then, and it was noticeable. Like he just wasn't, he wasn't moving as much and wasn't the same Ozzy on stage. So yeah. So I mean, it was still a great show. That's what we get into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You need to go see these people as much as you can, because one day you can't, kind of deal. All right. Okay. So well, no, we're not the craziest experience yet, Moss. So hold on. We're getting there. Because another thing that makes Ozzy, I'm glad that we've spent so much time talking about the music.
Yep.
Because we haven't really talked about what a lot of people on social media are talking about, which is the character of Ozzy. And to me, that character came out, and the slide that we brought up, and our standout Ozzy television appearance is that of the Osbournes. And we can talk about the Osbournes in a little bit, like, kind of the mixed place that the Osbourne now stands. There's a history behind it and more revealed about it. But there's still a lot of great moments of Ozzy being Ozzy, the complex character that he is. Not only the musician, but also the father, the clown, the compassionate humanitarian. There's a lot to this guy, and that's what television picked up on. And a lot of people that didn't know anything about his music all of a sudden started to know and appreciate about him.
Yeah, and the cool thing about the Osbournes was you saw him for all of his craziness, and it wasn't just on the stage. I mean, it was evident the years of alcohol and substances and everything, but he's a softie at heart. Right. And you saw that in how he interacted with his family. He
was a caring dad. You saw him as a caring father.
Yeah, and he always has talked about in some interviews, but especially in the biography series, The 9 Lives of Ozzy Osbourne, where he talks about, Ozzy's just a character that I get into when I'm on stage.
Yes.
And he's like, and outside of the stage, I'm John Osbourne.
Right.
And so you certainly got to see that in the Osbournes.
Right.
And which was cool. Yeah. And that's the direction I went in terms of my standout appearance. But then I forgot about Decline of the Western Civilization
so
Part 2, the metal years. And that is my standout moment.
All right, so hold on.
Ozzy making breakfast.
I love it. That's where I went to. I went to the Decline of Western Civilization, which I was wondering if you would go there, and I was thinking you probably could, but I wasn't sure if you're going to fully remember. We talk about this movie, by the way, on this podcast. If you've never really watched, we talk about it constantly. It's a genius movie about rock and still struggling with addiction then, right? Like still struggling with addiction then, right? Like, and that's why you see an incoherent Ozzy. And that's, some people laugh at that and think that's part of the clown, but like he was actually really struggling in some of those scenes, and that's kind of Jack Osbourne's take. I also went with, I almost went with the Jack and Ozzy series where they're touring America. And there's a lot of great episodes. I mean, when they have to inseminate the horse, I mean, that is classic Ozzy. And whoever picked that moment to like milk a male horse, a stallion, you know what I mean? So they can inseminate another horse with that sleeve that they use on this. I mean, that was amazing, Ozzy. Or when he hopped into the tank, like, and he was driving a tank around a tank, like, I guess collection. I think it was in North Carolina. Fantastic stuff to watch. And Ozzy's just Ozzy, and he's funny and he's classic then. And it's also endearing, right? Because he's doing all of this with his son and then meeting up with the rest of his family from time to time. So I almost went there too. But like you, Kevin, like he's coming out of the Betty Ford Clinic for, I don't know who knows how many times now, like in this portion of his life. Right. And he's talking about this as he's making breakfast. And this is the side that this movie shows, because it shows a very glamorous side of glam metal in the 1980s.
Right.
But then it also shows darker sides to it too. And I mean, Ozzy compared to Kiss in this, right? Like Kiss, Paul Stanley's in a bed full of women and he's showing the glitz and the glam, right? He's got like at least 6 women like laying on top of him as he's being interviewed. Gene Simmons is in a lingerie store and there's women like going around shopping for lingerie. So again, like embracing the excess. But Ozzy takes that path, a completely different path. He's going to cook breakfast, which no other person thought of or would have done. And he's just going to talk to you very candidly, very openly. And he's sober in this. And so you hear a very articulate Ozzy. So
Right.
not the slurring, not the drawn out words, you know, what we later to come to go like kind of look up and be like, what is wrong with him? Why is he mumbling so much? He's well spoken. He's very well spoken in this interview. And I really appreciate that. And so you see the energetic and cheery side of him, and it's also part of him and his sobriety. I think he was in a good place
Right.
at that time to do this type of interview. And it really made like a different bend on the movie, and it really made it more entertaining.
Sure.
You know, to see like that point of view.
Yeah, because then on the flip side of that, you had Chris Holmes.
Yes.
Who they kind of came out later and said, you know, well, the whole thing with the vodka bottle where was not really vodka.
Right.
But it was quite evident.
He was feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was pretty much shit-faced.
Yeah.
And they talked about his issues dealing with alcohol. So you kind of got the yin and the yang on that between the two of those guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of exposure that Ozzy had as a person, you know, outside of his music. And that ultimately that exposure is ultimately drawn off our next category, which Masayona brought up, most outrageous Ozzy moment. So this is what first caught the attention and struck fear in the hearts of parents early in Ozzy's career, especially as he was coming out of Black Sabbath and starting his solo career. So,
Yep.
all right, you want me to go first? You went for last. Well, you went first last time, but we've agreed on a lot in this
Sure.
conversation.
I'll go.
All right.
So obviously there's some pretty easy low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, another thing that we see quite a bit, I've seen quite a bit on social media, is referencing biting the head off the bat.
That you got to start there. And then
Right.
to me, like when somebody says Ozzy Osbourne, if they've heard their music or not, they'll say, "Isn't that the guy that bit the head off the bat?"
Right.
Which has happened, but there's other biting incidents.
That's true.
Right.
And so I wasn't going to go there
Okay.
because that's fairly well known.
All right, so they'll say he bit the head off a dove as well.
Correct.
As at an album release party.
Yep.
And that really kicked off the bat incident. That was before the bat.
I think so. Yeah.
But it wasn't as well publicized.
No. And it sounded like it was in some meeting with marketing people with CBS Records. I was reading about this again because I'm like,
They
how
released
did that all
doves.
come about? Yeah. So he had 2 doves that he was supposed to release
Right.
in this meeting.
Right.
So he's in a, you know, conference room
Yeah.
with a bunch of record execs
Feeling damn
holding 2 doves.
Right. and he's
And yeah.
young Ozzy.
And
He bites the head off
I
of
guess he got bored and
Yeah.
tired of the meeting agenda and
Yeah.
just bit the head off of one of the doves. And so there's a great picture, you can find it online, of him with
The
blood
dove
on his
blood.
chin and
Yes.
holding the dove
Headless
with no
dove.
head.
Yeah.
And supposedly he spit the head at this marketing rep.
Yes.
So that was pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and my personal choice is, it cannot get any more outrageous than snorting a line of
Okay.
live ants,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
as was documented. And when I read that in The Dirt
By Motley Crue.
by Motley Crue, I'm like, there's no way.
that you could snort a line of ants.
Yeah. And so then I read some other interview where Ozzy's like, well, yeah, it might have happened, but I don't remember it.
And
So
I thought of this too because it's a great measure of outrageousness, because Ozzy was legendary for his outrageousness, and that was when Motley Crue was young and hungry and opening for him in the Every Mother's Nightmare tour.
Right.
They wanted to one up him, and Ozzy just would not let that happen. If they were going to get crazy, he was going to get crazier.
right.
Yeah, and he started, and that's multiple sources.
Yep.
And he has never denied it. He's never.
Oh, no.
He's never confirmed or denied.
He just says, I don't remember.
Yeah, he's, I probably could have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if you read The Dirt, by the way, and everything about that tour, there's more outrageousness along the lines of the ants.
Yeah, and if you've watched the movie on Netflix, that's pretty outrageous, most of that stuff. But the book is even
Oh, sure.
is even better.
They watered it down. They watered down the book to make Netflix, and it's still not overly watered.
Right.
I went with Pissing on the Alamo.
Yeah.
All right, so like, I kind of get it. Like, as crazy as it sounds, like if you ever been to the Alamo in San Antonio, it's surrounded by like junk stores. It's not. You would assume that this would be like a pristine and, I don't know, just isolated place. And of course, it's revered. And this is also, to me, just very Ozzy, just how he's just kind of like can be innocently naive while he's like out in raging party mode, right? So like the story is, they were in San Antonio. It was Ozzy's, I can't remember which tour, solo tour. I can't remember if it was Diary of a Madman, or it might have been it should have been Diary of a Madman, because I think it was around 84. Feeling pretty good, maybe lost control and was lost in the middle of the night. So he lost all of his, crew and people around him, and he was wandering through San Antonio. And then, like, of course, he had to relieve himself, like, along the way. Next thing he knows, he's in handcuffs and puking all over a jail cell floor and is banned from San Antonio because the building that he chose to pee on and his incoherences happened to turned out to be the Alamo. And this banned him from San Antonio for a number of years. Yeah. So, and this is him getting out of jail. It was one of the pictures that I have when he was released several days later. But he was allowed back in again. He apologized profusely for this. This was like definitely a substance-fueled mistake. I don't even want to say drunken mistake. That's putting it lightly.
And not the only time. Because there was another time he got arrested, and I don't remember what city, but he urinated on an unmarked police car.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And it was a female officer in the car, and the story goes, when she got out of the car, she said, when you're done shaking off, you're going to jail.
Right.
So,
right. And that's just his inadvertent trouble. And mishappened and mischievous trouble. And of course, this is a major landmark in the history of the United States. So a lot of people took great offense to this. That's why he was banned from Texas until 2015. And I guess those apologies eventually sunk in. And then it turned out like he's sweet, lovable Ozzy, right? And he reestablishes himself, and he has a great relationship with everyone in San Antonio again. And he was allowed to go back into the city and the Alamo before he passed. So I just went with that one. I love Ozzy and the cowboy hat in that picture too. And there's a lot of crazy that you can pick out. Not that we picked out the best, but those were ones, again, in remembrance and celebrating this great guy and the legacy that he left us. And that's really kind of our last piece to discuss is, the endearing legacy of Ozzy. And it's going to be big. And I don't know if you have any like kind of closing thoughts, Kevin. What do you think that's going to be, Ozzy's legacy?
Well, I think it begins and ends with the music. Well, unfortunately, this happens to some artists. They pass and they become maybe a little more famous.
Right.
So I think as sad as all of that is, and the part, as talked about, the part he's had in our lives for as long as he has, now he's likely being exposed to people that didn't listen to a lot of their music.
Right.
So now people are seeking that out, and are all the better to have more people enjoying, their music.
I 100%. I mean, he changed the face of music, period. And that was a part of the riff conversation that I was getting a drunken call in the beach from is, when does heavy metal start? And most people agree it's the first Black Sabbath album. Yep. And you could throw some other artists that led into that and led up to that, and it was the evolution of it. But Sabbath was the first that certainly embraced it and wanted to make it a specific sound. And even though they really truly never really called themselves that,
right.
They weren't afraid to, like, Led Zeppelin kind of like, no, we're not a metal band, and no, we're not.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Geezer Butler says it is Led Zeppelin, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because it is a sound that they created. And it's almost unmistakable. Mm-hmm. You listen to other bands and you hear Sabbath and Ozzy's influences on their music.
Absolutely.
We talked about this with Soundgarden and other bands that, may be known in other metal subgenres or different genres, but you hear that influence in their music.
Sure.
So I think ultimately it is heavy metal, and they created it, and everyone else has made it better.
Right. And I also like in the legacy of Ozzy's music, because a lot of times heavy metal can get very angry. It can get get very pretentious even and sullen. All of that is in Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne's music. But then there's also a lot of positivity in it too, like those anti-war messages, those feelings of hope and feeling of connectivity when you're lost or isolated and in a place of despair. And that I think is a strength for sure to show really kind of the diversity of heavy metal and sometimes the things that are missed within it. And I think that is the excellent piece of Ozzy Osbourne's work. Right. And I remember Blackie Lawless, in terms of thinking of him as a person and the character and the crazy moments. I remember him being interviewed at one point and talking about Ozzy Osbourne specifically. And he's like, there's so many people that's always going to remember Ozzy for being Ozzy and the character of Ozzy. And they really kind of overlook how much of a great musician that he actually is. And if you look behind that, some of the stuff that he's doing musically is very amazing. In the lyric writing and so forth. So I think that's going to be a continuing legacy. I know that I'm going to pick on another podcast that occasionally happens here now, but of course it's Tribe Called Jess, and Jess being the lead of a Tribe Called Jess. She made a post about Ozzy, which I was very surprised to see, being an EDM girl. And she was just basically talking about her first Ozzy experience. And of course it's that biting the head off the bat, right? The Ozzy of the character. But she's still making an endearing message about the guy that bit the head off the bat. And why is that so? Like, why would you take the time to say, well, I'm going to miss you, Ozzy? Because if he's just some, prick that bit the head off a bat. But obviously he's a lot more of that. So he connected to people in so many different ways.
Yep.
And that is really kind of the amazing part about this guy that your parents were horrified to have you listen to. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies is Almost Famous. And when he got, his sister gave the main character a pile of albums in the beginning, his mom's screaming about not listening to that devil's music. And it's like Simon and Garfunkel and, like a lot of hippie 60 music that is really just uplifting and very positive. And there's definitely that side to metal. There's definitely that side to Black Sabbath. And there's definitely that side to Ozzy Osbourne. So I think that is a very rich legacy and a complex legacy. And,
for sure.
And thank you, Ozzy, for leaving us that.
Yes. And to quote a guy I work with, we were chatting about this today, and he made the comment, rest in power.
Oh, I like it. Yeah,
so everybody's saying rest in peace, but, that's at the essence of Sabbath was power.
Right.
In all of their music and their performances and everything. So to Ozzy. Rest in power, dude.
All right. And then, wait a minute, I'm going to leave on a quote also from Playboy magazine. Ozzy had a 2005 Playboy interview in which he stated, "When I go down, I don't want there to be morbid people fucking crying. I want people to celebrate my life. Get me in the ground as soon as you can. You can cry all you want, but I ain't coming back. I don't think there'll be any fucking return tickets." So yeah. So remember that. Like that just put a smile on your face. Let the man put a smile on your face and listen to the great music he made.
Absolutely. And couple of logistical notes. Again, coming up Friday here at the Salisbury Center, August the 1st. Great night of music with Riot, Paramore tribute band, Primus.
Yeah.
Doing some Primus tunes and Brain Stew.
It's going to be a good night, man. Those are all strong tribute acts. And I really recommend that show if you can get here.
Yep. Then on Friday, September the 12th, a little bit of AC/DC tribute. The band Thunderstruck will be here. And our friends F It All are going to be opening it up.
Coming back to the Salisbury Center. Yeah.
And then also on Friday, November the 7th, kind of wrapping all of this up in a nice little bow, the band Sabbath will be here. A tribute to Black Sabbath that night. Excellent. So get your tickets at getwild.com, and you can go to getwild.com/stand up and shout and get some stand up and shout t-shirts.
Right on.
Yeah. Anything else?
We love you, Ozzy. Thank you so much, Ozzy. Thank you so much.
See ya.
We love you too.